Before you do anything, you're going to want to wedge your clay. For wheel throwing, the squishier clay is preferred. And when I throw, your hands will get covered in clay and it'll be harder to wedge later on. So you want to make sure you wedge as many balls as you think you're going to be able to throw at that time. So I think I'm going to have time for about 2, so I'm about to wedge 2. Alright, with wedging, you take the ball of clay, try and make it more into a ball shape if it's a little misshapen. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use the little joint that's there in your thumb. You're going to use those joints to push the clay forward while the sides of your hand are going to keep the clay from going outwards. So if I did this incorrectly, if I just pressed with my thumbs, I would just make it flat. And that's not really what we really want, because it went out a little too much, instead of folding in on itself like we want. If you've ever kneaded bread for baking, it's very similar to that. So I'm going to use, again, the little joints in my thumbs to push it down, and the sides of my hands are going to stop that clay from coming out the sides. So push, roll back, push, roll back, push, roll back, push, roll back, push, roll back. And what happens is that this is mixing the clay throughout. You can see there's a little spiral starting to happen. It makes the clay easier to throw because all those clay particles are going into a circle in there. It also gets out air bubbles. It makes it more even if you have perhaps drier, wetter spots within it. So you want to wedge. It depends on how soft the clay is, but I usually like to wedge probably 20 to 30 times. And then I beat it more into a little ball. So now I have one wedge ball. Now I'm going to wedge the other. Here are the wheels themselves. When you first get there, you're going to want to take your chair down, but scoot it all the way up to the end. You don't want to be far away, you want to be as close as you possibly can. This pedal right here should be pressed all the way down, because if it's pressed the opposite, then when we go to turn it on, it's going to spin out of control. So you want it pressed down. Little on-off switch right here. Now it's on. If you were left-handed, you would use that switch to change it for left-handed to go in the other direction, but I am right-handed, so we're going to leave that there. And that pedal, you'll see as I press it down. If I do it slow, nice and slow, a little bit more medium, you won't really ever need to go this fast. It's just going to freak you out, so please don't do that. Just keep it about medium, and for beginners, you probably want to keep it slow. Alright, there's my 2 balls of wedge clay from earlier. I like to use a sponge, a wooden rib, and for later I have a wire tool to cut it off. Our slip containers are all right here. It already has water in it. And my directions are already written on there. Okay, when I go to sit down, again, I want to make sure my chair is all the way up on the wheel. And I want to be as close to this wheel as I possibly can be. All my hair should be tied up. I shouldn't have any dangly hair bits. I shouldn't have any rings or bracelets on. No long necklaces that could fall into it. Alright, so our number 1 step is going to be wet the bat. We only need a little bit of moisture to make it stick easier. We don't need a whole ton. So just that little bit is already good. Next, we're going to smash it in the center. You're going to take that ball of clay, and you can give it a little test drop, but then you're going to literally smash it in the center. If it's a little bit off, you can nudge it over a little bit, but If it's completely off, you just want to pick the whole thing up again and try again. But this should be all right. It's pretty much in the center. Now we're going to pat, pat, pat down. This is just to make sure it sticks to that clay bat. We don't want it to come off. All right, and then we're going to wet hands and wet our clay. So I'm going to use that slip bucket, get the clay all wet, get my hands all slippery. All right, and so now we're going to get this turned on to medium speed. There should be good. All right, and now it says for me to anchor my elbow. This is the kind of the weirdest, trickiest part, because when you think about it, if I try and grab it right now, it's gonna make me move because it's wobbly. What I want to happen is for me to stay still and the clay to be forced to go into the shape, the nice shape that I want it to. So what I'm gonna do is, because my hands only weigh like 5-10 pounds each, I'd rather use my whole body weight to do this. So I'm gonna use my arm and anchor it. I'm gonna connect it to my hip bone that's right there. People can also use your leg bone. You can also connect it to your leg, but what's most comfortable for me is my hip bone. So I'm literally gonna wedge my elbow into my hip bone so that I do not move. All right, so that's been a minute, so I'm gonna make sure we have enough moisture going on here again. And I'm going to just let my hand be here. I don't even need this other hand. It's a little support hand. I'm just gonna let that left hand cone up. And so now I have a cone shape going on, the volcano. And again, the clay's running into my hand, and because my hand is steady using my weight, it's not going to go too far off. So you can use both hands. When I do it, I actually like to wrap my fingers like this with each other, lace my fingers up, and then use the palm of my hands, just like how you're wedging with that part of your thumb. You're not using your hands, you're not using your palms, or actually that's the palm. You're using this base here where these bones are to push the clay up. But you're doing it firmly, and you're not doing any sudden movements with it, because if you do a sudden movement on it, it's gonna get like a chunk in it, and then you're gonna have issues. So no sudden movements, and be firm. And now we've coned up, we wanna cone back down. My preferred method for this is to, again, have my left hand be that support system that stays there and is anchored into my hip bone. And I'm gonna use my right hand, my right fist, to come down and chop it. Like this. And then I'm already running out of moisture. I can already tell that's dry. So what I like to do a lot of times is, while I'm using my fist to do this, I'll hold the sponge, and then I'll let that water drip out. So that keeps it nice and hydrated. And again, firm, gentle pressure. My elbow is anchored into my hip bone. And now I have a nice flan shape. Went from a volcano to flan. But I want to cone up one more time. Most people cone about 2 to 3 times. What this is doing is making all the clay even. It's making it not wobbly. It's just giving you a nice foundation to build everything off of. So I'm going to cone up again. And again, I'm anchoring myself. And I'm using my palms. Feels like I need more moisture. And take your time. I'm going quickly because y'all will get bored if I take too long with this. But when you're first doing this, take your time with it. Any frustration you have is going to rub off on your clay. All right, and then I'm going to cone down again. Use that sponge. Don't rush it. All right. And now I have my flan shape back. I'm gonna make these edges a little straighter. I'm gonna let go gently. All right. So, now that I have my little cake shape even, I want to get this part of it about as wide as I want the base of it to be. So if I want a cup and I want the base to be about that big, then I'm good. If I wanted it to be smaller, I'd make it smaller, bring it in more. If I wanted it wider, I'd comb down more and push it further. So this is about the size that I want to try. So now we're going to put a hole in the center. This tends to use a lot of moisture, so you might want to preemptively get that wet. A lot of people like to use their thumbs and kind of just go for it. Again, make sure that you're not just, oh, I'm just coming over from here and doing it. Make sure you're connecting to your body and you're keeping your hands still. And you want to go close to the bottom, but you want to give yourself between 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch so you know your piece has a bottom. My technique that I like to do is I like to switch and use my right hand to anchor into my body, and then I'll use my left hand to go down. And again, I need more moisture. All right. And I feel like I'm near the bottom, and there's actually a trick to test that for sure, and I always forget to tell people about this. I'll be right back. I think I don't tell you guys this on purpose because I'm afraid of having needle tools around the wheels, but just be careful and you'll be all right. So if I want to know how thick my bottom is, I'm going to put this needle tool to the very bottom, and then I'm going to put my hands in the cup and pinch it where it meets the cup so I know, okay, I have that much of a bottom left, which is about 1/2 inch, so I'm happy with that. If it was more like a 3/4 of an inch or an inch, then I could go down further. If it was too thin, there wouldn't be a whole lot I could do about it. I could add a different bottom later on, but it's not something you can really come back from. So, I'm back to medium speed. Now that I have a hole in the bottom, I need to open this up wider. Again, there's different ways to do this, but my preferred way is to, again, anchor my right side and use my left and pull it. I'm pulling using my left hand, and I'm pulling it into my right. And you see my little thumb wrapped around there. It's supporting because that hand's steady. That hand's not going anywhere because it's anchored to me. So this hand is depending on this hand to keep it steady. All right. And then you should have this. Okay. So you should already have some height from it, but we're gonna grow this even taller. If it got thick, don't worry about it. We can grow it higher. You wanna make sure your bottom's nice at this point though, because it can be hard to reorganize your bottom later on. But now that we have this, we want to grow taller before we grow wider. And again, the technique I like to use is I'll have my left hand on the inside and my right hand with the sponge a little bit lower and come up at little bits, little amounts. So I'm kind of pinching it from the outside and pulling it up and pinching it both ways. And then a trick I didn't learn till later on is when you get to your top, I like to have 2 fingers on the side and 1 on the top. And what that does is makes my rim nice, because the rims are the things that get wonky the quickest because they're the furthest away from the center. They're gonna get warped. So again, I'm gonna pull up again. And my rim again is getting a little wonky. And you see I'm not pulling up like inches at a time. After you guys get comfortable with this, yes, you can be more adventurous and pull up more. But as you just saw with that, because I pulled up more, it made it wonkier than it would have been. And I also just knocked it with my nail. So I'm going to continue going up. You can really tell I'm messing my room up by rushing like this. Alright, so this is a basic cylinder shape. If I were happy with this, I could cut it off and make it into a cup, but I also want to show you how to do bowls. With bowls, this extra clay down here you'd want to leave to have it be kind of support for it. So when I do turn a cup into a bowl, I'll get both my hands wet and then I'll lean it out gently. And then let go gently. Get my hands wet again. And just offering that gentle support. Alright, so if I were happy with this and I wanted to cut it off, I should do a couple things. I should make sure there's no moisture in the bottom. I should make sure my inside, my bottom looks like how I want it to. And then I like to trim my bottom a little bit. So what I end up doing is taking a wooden rib, just cutting into it a little bit. Makes it a lot easier later on. And I can just smooth it out with my fingers. Right. So now I'm gonna wanna cut this off and put it to the side. You'll wanna lay it on a paper towel because it's gonna stick to anything else. So I'm gonna take my wire tool and I'm gonna wrap it around my pointer fingers. That way I can put it on the bat and press it down with my thumbs. And I'm gonna do one motion, either going away from myself or towards myself. I usually like to go away from myself. So again, I have my thumbs pushing it all the way to the bottom. I wrap around my fingers to give it more tension. Just go confidently through. And then you wanna grab it quickly. It's okay if you warp it a little bit because you can warp it back. You don't wanna wait around a long time because it could reseal itself back and you'll have to cut it again. But there's my bowl. Now that I put it down, I can smooth it out, rewarp it back into the shape it was. And then I would make sure this wire tool was off my wheel. This could get caught underneath and that would be a real issue. It would mess up the wire, it would mess up my wheel. So if I was happy with my first bowl and I wanted to move on to my second one, I would take my little wooden rib and it makes cleanup nice and easy for this liquid stuff that the rib doesn't get. There's my sponge, of course. Alright, and then because this already has moisture on it, I can just take the clay and smash it again. hold your finger over it, where the bolts are. Put your finger over it, slide your fingers out, wiggle. You're good. That's it.